The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host and their guests do not necessarily reflect those of Para X, its affiliates, or its sponsors.
Merry meet everyone, and welcome to Stirring the Cauldron's Masterclass. I see the professor is walking up to the podium. So, take a seat, get comfortable. The class is ready to begin.
Merry meet everybody, and welcome to Stirring the Cauldron's Masterclass. Our professor is psychic medium Jane Doherty. Now, Jane is one of the nation's leading authorities on psychic experiences, and for more than 20 years, she's acted as a communication bridge between the living and the departed, and has helped tens of thousands of people understand their past, future, and the spirit world. She starred in the international TV series Dead Tenants for TLC, as well as Jane Doherty's Investigations, and that's a DVD series. And her book, Awakening the Mystic Gift, The Surprising Truth About What It Means to Be Psychic, reveals Jane's personal story and sheds light on how you can develop the psychic within you. And that's what tonight's masterclass is all about. It's learning about how to discover and develop your psychic abilities. If you're listening to the live show and in the virtual classroom, feel free to ask questions or comments for Jane. And if you want to join other students, come over to paraxradionetwork.com. So get something to take notes with and hunker down, because this is going to be a really interesting class. Hi, Jane, and welcome.
Thank you.
I'm excited about this. This is really, really good. We've got so much to cover and little time. Let's get started by saying that people say they're psychic and some people say they're mediums. Well, you're both. And I had someone message me earlier today and wanted to know the difference between the two.
Yes. What that means is, because I'm a psychic medium, I predict the future and I also communicate with the dead. If you're just a psychic, then you're only doing predictions. If you're just a medium, then you're only communicating with the dead. But I do both, and that's how I started first, doing predictions, and then eventually it also evolved into mediumship.
Can you say a little bit more about that? When did that mediumship come in, and how did you get it?
Okay, the mediumship came in probably about 5 or 6 years after I was doing predictions, and it really happened by accident, where I finally decided that I would do some of the mediumship because people were begging me to do it. And I was doing ghost tours at the Spy House Museum here in New Jersey, and I promised them to do seances, and that's how it started. I started first doing seances. How I first knew the mediumship had kicked in was I was at the Art Center in New Jersey watching Wayne Newton with my husband, my then husband. And what happened is I knew he was an American Indian. And on stage, I kept looking at an image of an Indian woman. I can still see it today. Her profile, all the wrinkles, everything. And I was waiting for him to talk about this. And he never did. And half an hour went by and I'm still looking at this woman. I finally turned to my husband and said, "Do you see that woman on the screen?" And he said, "What woman? What screen?" There was nothing up there to him. And that's when I knew I had developed the ability to see things as far as mediumship, because it was like an hallucination. You're projecting is what happened. And that is one of the ways that you'll begin to know you're evolving and becoming a medium. When things like that start to happen. The one before that actually happened in my bedroom, where I saw a big, beautiful red rose at the top of the ceiling. And then I slowly watched it move across the room. And there was no rose there, but it was what I was seeing clearly. And that was definitely a sign of mediumship.
Wow.
That it had evolved.
That's a great story. All right, I'm going to kind of step aside and let you to it.
Okay. Usually, I like to explain. People think of a medium as someone that's just communicating with spirit, but there's been so many things that I've done with the mediumship that you think of it. It's you comfort the living, but you also comfort the dead. There have been many a times that the deceased was trying to get me to communicate because they were in pain. And that was a twist. That's something I never expected to happen. But there were moments that it did, and it was very gratifying to know that you're also helping the living. Uh, Usually, it's you're connecting one more time with your loved one, and they see it as the same. So it's not just us. And sometimes, as a medium, I'm also doing something where I find a spirit confused and they don't know that they're deceased. Usually, that will happen if it's sudden death and they weren't prepared for death and they don't know where they are. So, as a medium, I can make contact and actually help them. And I've done that several times. And every now and then, I'll find someone who is afraid to go to the other side fully to God because they're just afraid of it. And so then you encourage them to go to the light and that there is nothing to be afraid of. So you're also in a counseling position many times. And a lot of times people don't think of a medium as that. And sometimes you're solving a problem for them. One particular case was the people couldn't find the father's will. They were going crazy all over the house and they couldn't find it. So we made communication with the father and he clearly communicated to me where the will was and they found it. And that was able to help them with that problem. Now, mediums are different. There's no two the same. It's our own unique styles. It's just like no two people are the same. We are all unique. And it's important that we discover our uniqueness in everything because we're a unique soul. So the styles usually is there. For me, I've started doing mediumship in seances. And then I done gallery readings, and I'll explain what that is in a minute. And then also I've done them on the phone. You can do individual readings. When COVID hit, I decided to try to do medium readings through Zoom, to actually do a seance on Zoom. And to my surprise, it worked very well. And I think the reason was the fact that I can concentrate totally when I'm in Zoom doing a seance. When I'm in an actual room with people, there's a lot of distractions and a lot of different energy. But in that setting, I was able to do it very well, and I was quite surprised. Now, in the gallery reading, it's different well, for me, it's different. I have a very unique thing happen to me. When I am near spirit, my stomach actually enlarges anywhere from 3 to 5 inches, and that has been measured to be that way. So I do ghost investigations using my stomach first. I'll find where I react, and then I'll get into my psychic mode and communicate with the spirit that way. So in a gallery reading, what I do is I'll walk around the room and around people, and I'll find where the spirit is because my stomach is going to react, and you're going to see that. And then I'll get into my psychic mode and start the communication between me and the spirit and the person. So it's unique to me. There's no one else that I know of that's happened to. People will ask me, why does this happen? The only reason I can give it is as a person, I'm very, very sensitive. So when I started to do psychic readings and mediumship, the body reacted to the energy. I've also learned that England has done research and they discovered that our stomach actually has a brain. So I believe that's what's going on, that extra eye in the stomach is reacting to spirit.
Wow. That's
And
interesting.
that's a thing to know and to remember, because as you're trying to develop psychic ability, it's extremely important to pay attention to your body, because if you tune into it, you will discover that if you're telling psychic truth or if you're getting a psychic impression, you will actually feel something on your body. It may be just a tingling sensation that goes up your spine to the top of your head. So there are signs that can help you to determine that you're getting information. Now, of course, with the spirit, anybody can have a spirit come near you in the house, or someplace that you are a spirit loved one. I find that our spirit loved ones often come to us in dreams, and they will also come around to us in the house. And the one peculiar thing I find that's definitely a loved one, when you start having objects in the house missing. Let's say you put your keys on the counter, you walk into the other room, you come back an hour later, and those keys are gone. You look all over and you can't find them, all over the house. And then the next day or several hours later, you find them on the counter where you left them. Spirit often does this, a loved one, because they're trying to get your attention. If they can't get it another way, they're going to do it by moving an object. So it's something to pay attention. Of course, also when your spirit loved one comes around you, you will feel it in a cold energy. You will feel absolutely cold, sometimes just on one side of the body, sometimes it envelops you, and you will feel it. And of course, as is happening to me with my stomach, whenever a spirit is around, like we had that the other night in the house, my daughter started to feel the cold around her, and we started to feel the cold. And I really didn't want to have to get up to go over to her to see if the spirit was there. But I did, because I was laying down on the couch watching TV. And as I got up to go, my stomach immediately started to go out. So I knew it was spirit, and I knew it was my sister, who I found it to be a loved one. And then we found out something later that kind of coordinated with that.
Mm.
I had an extraordinary experience with my sister that I just have to tell you about, because it was a shock to me. I mean, I'm doing this 35 years, and I've had a lot of experience with spirits and communicating and things like this, but I've never had this, and I've been so blessed. My daughter was in the hospital in February, and she had emergency back surgery, and then she got a blood clot in her leg because of the surgery, and then she got one in her lung. And I couldn't go to the hospital because I'm taking care of my granddaughter. So I'm on the recliner chair, and I'm just thinking, kind of praying. And I turned my head, I had my eyes closed, and I heard my voice being called. So I answered, "What?" But there was nobody there. I thought it was my granddaughter. And as I opened my eyes, what I saw in front of me was my deceased sister, fully solid in front of me.
Wow.
And she was holding a blanket and a pillow, just like she did when my granddaughter was born, because she was in the delivery room.
Mm.
When I said her name, I called her name Pat, then she put a smile on her face and dissipated. And I knew at that moment that my daughter was going to be okay. And it's an incredible experience. When somebody has that, it's a blessing in so many ways. That's for sure. Now, people often ask, well, how does it come through? How do you feel it, or how do you know? It's subtle, whether it's a psychic impression or whether it's a mediumship, a spirit around. It's subtle. Most people think it's going to be like a hammer on your head, say, "Hey, here I am, look at me," or communicate with me. It's not. It's very subtle, and you have to pay attention. And I'm going to give you some things to work on to be able to do that.
Yeah.
You will also get it in feelings. You might just feel, I find this is interesting when I do my seances. I like to tease the group and say at the end that spirit comes around, and it helps you to identify it by the pain that you feel. because they will bring that pain, how they died, to you like a sympathy pain. And that's the way that you can identify them is that pain. Um, and also in vision, I'll close my eyes and I'll get a vision in front of me of a person. Now, it's not a clear, detailed vision. It will be clouded, but you know it's a vision. You'll see the outline. It's something important to know because if you're attempting to develop the ability and you're having experiences, don't think that you're going to get a very clear image. You don't. It's that is what you look for. You also, and it's in a millisecond. When that vision comes, it's a millisecond. I have the ability a lot of times to bring it back, which I've trained myself to do. Now, the other way is going to be hearing. You don't actually hear the spirit voice in your ear like audio. It's like an expanded sense of your hearing. Like I will like open my ears and I'll imagine that it's extending, it's expanding. And as I do that, that's when I get the information. It's almost like it comes into your mind. Sometimes it gets written in my mind. It's like how I do it. I close my eyes, and it's like I'm going down a dark tunnel, and there's almost like a white chalkboard in front of me, or a blackboard, and I'll actually see words written in what the spirit is saying. So these are things on how you can tell. I think the most difficult for anybody trying to develop the ability is going to be recognizing a psychic impression or a spirit trying to communicate with you, because you think it's going to be something that's dramatic and that you're going to know immediately, and it's not. It's very subtle. And the other difficulty is trusting. People have a hard time trusting. They'll say it's your imagination or it's my imagination, and they don't pay attention to it until they'll get it several times, and then they'll be able to know that's what it is. Now, my feeling is anybody can become psychic and get information. You may not be able to apply it to a lot of people, but you're going to get information. And also you yourself can communicate with your relatives. It's not hard. It's a matter of having patience and staying quiet and actually asking them to come. And as you do something like that on a regular basis, they'll know you're trying to communicate with them. And then you'll start to sense some of those other things like the cold, or you'll get a feeling, or you might get a pain, or you might get an image, and you'll know that they're present. And don't open your eyes, just mentally ask them something and then pay attention to the first thing you're getting. And you may get it in pictures, which is important for you to know. A picture is how spirits will communicate to you. I have one great example on how that comes about. Mm-hmm. I was doing a seance, and I think maybe this girl has been to 8 of my seances. She was raised by her grandmother. Her mother died when she was young. And every seance, her mother came through. And in this particular seance, her mother did come through again. But it was the end of the seance, and she says to me, "But I want to know, what did my mother call me when I was a kid?" Now, I looked at her and said, now I'm at the end of the seance. You don't have that energy to be able to do as much. So I said, I'll try. So I go back in it. I've got my eyes closed. And all I kept seeing was an elephant. Kept pushing this elephant out, and the elephant would come back. And I'm saying, my God, this is crazy, an elephant. So I finally gave up. I opened my eyes. I said, I'm sorry, I can't get it. I said, the only image that I'm getting is an elephant. And she burst out crying because her mother used to call her Dumbo.
Oh.
So that's a great example on how spirit can give you a image, but don't take it literally. It could mean something else. So you have to pay attention to everything with it. That was just an incredible one to show you how they communicate in pictures. Also, let's say they give you an image, and let's say it's a bridge. Now you have to interpret that image. What are they trying to say? Is it a bridge that they're going to go over? Are they going to have an accident on a bridge? Is your loved one trying to warn you about going on a bridge? Or that maybe you recently was on a bridge and you almost was in a car accident, so that they would be telling you that they prevented you from having that accident. So it's the interpretation where a psychic or a medium could go wrong, so that you have to make sure that you give enough of a interpretation, because it can mean a lot of things. So that's very important to do.
I always think, I'm going to interrupt for a second. I've got a question, but before that, I always say that people call your name out, that you hear them, but
Yes.
you're saying that maybe it's not really hearing, it's just kind of in our mind.
Yes.
But we didn't not, okay.
But you'll hear it. What you're talking about is it's different. Like when my sister called my name,
Mm-hmm.
I think sometimes we're in the house, and I know everybody has had this experience, where all of a sudden they hear their name called, but nobody's there.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll actually hear it.
Yeah.
Yes, that's another way spirit comes in. When I go in and communicate, I'm not hearing them actually say the word. I'm
Mm.
an expanded sense of hearing, and I
Okay.
can get what it is. But it's two ways.
Yeah, and they're cryptic things sometimes you hear, a sentence or something that makes no sense at all.
Yes.
That's another thing. And I always say, they just want to tease us a little bit, or just get, something else. But
Well,
yeah,
yes,
but
but you have to understand they can't do what they did when they were alive.
true.
The only reason that they could speak was they had a voice box. So
Mm-hmm.
on the other side, you don't have that physical apparatus. And they can't say, this is so and so, and I was your grandmother, and we used to do this. They can't do that. So they're going to give you pictures. They're going
Mm-hmm.
to give you these subtle images or words or feelings in
Mm-hmm.
order to know that they're there or they're trying to communicate.
Mm.
And dreams are very important.
Yeah.
When you dream of your loved one that's deceased, they're communicating with you.
Mm-hmm.
They're
Yeah.
trying to reach you, or they're trying to let you know that they're okay. Something like that. And
Mm-hmm.
I also find in all the years I've been doing this, that there are sometimes when a person dies, a loved one, they'll see the white light, but they'll also get permission to stay close to the earth plane, because they have unfinished business. They're worried about their loved ones, and there's something they want to see. Let's say maybe a mother died and her daughter was going to get married, and she died before she saw her daughter married. That would be a case where she would get permission to stay close to the earth plane, so she could see her daughter married and would most likely be at the wedding in spirit.
I think that they're not allowed to say everything, right? I mean, they can
Right.
say a couple things, but like people say, well, how does it feel to die? Or, am I going to whatever? And people just say that it's so cryptic that why are they doing that? Why are they teasing us? But I keep thinking that they're just not allowed to do certain things.
Right. There's certain things they're not allowed to do. And also, it's hard for them to manifest,
Yeah.
and everything takes energy. So, that too.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting, in all the years I'm doing this, there's no one that's ever given me like a communication of exactly what it's like up there,
Mm-hmm.
which I find interesting. Or as far as knowing how it feels to die, it's
Mm-hmm.
nothing more than closing your eyes and being in a dream.
Yeah.
That's how it feels, because it's your consciousness that survives.
Mm-hmm.
and that's what you're communicating with. And up there, they would appear a lot of times to you as a younger version of themselves. Usually,
Mm-hmm.
age they'll pick,
Mm-hmm.
and you'll see a transparent figure of themselves, or dressed in clothes or something like that. And sometimes you'll only, hear them communicate that way.
Yeah. Let me get this question before I forget it from the chat room.
Okay.
She says, for those who are afraid of allowing themselves to communicate with those who have passed on, what do you suggest to say to reassure them that it's okay to do so?
Well, here's what I do. I always say a prayer, a non-denominational prayer, and that is usually I surround myself in a bubble of white light. Nothing negative can happen. Wherever I am, God is, and I'm always in God's loving protection. So that gives me uh, comfort to be able to communicate, to know that I'm not reaching anything that's negative. And the person trying to make that communication has to have a lot of trust. And it isn't something to be afraid of, because that fear will interfere. In fact, fear, how do I say this, is really negative. And when you're fearful and trying to do that, you actually can bring the negative side of this to you. So it's very important to stay positive and not have that fear. It's like trust is a big key to it.
Yes. And we always have a hard time trusting ourselves. And it's hard to break that and trust yourself.
Yes. What's different about me is I wasn't born with this ability. I think my mother had some psychic ability. She would say things, but she never called it psychic ability. She just said it was the way her mind worked.
Mm.
And then I later on found out that my father's mother's, or I guess it would be his aunt, she used to go around town reading tea leaves. And I never knew that until a relative that I didn't know I had came for a reading. And in that reading, she's showing me a picture of her grandmother, and it looked like my grandmother. And at the end of it, she said to me, "What do the names Stanley and Steve mean to you?" And I says, "Well, that's my uncles." And then she goes, "Well, that's what I thought." She says, "My grandmother and your grandmother were sisters, were related." So it was like unbelievable. But I developed it, and I'm going to talk about how you can develop it. What's most important is it's natural. You have to get to that point of believing and knowing this is a gift God gave to all of us. And that gift, even to make communication with the spirit world, it's a gift that God gave to all of us. It's only a matter of being able to unravel that. It has to do with your personality, trusting, knowing who you are. One of the most important things, there's few steps that I took, and the one is relaxation. You can't communicate with spirit, nor could you get psychic impressions, be guided by your own guide, unless you relax. Because it's in that state of relaxation that you will get the information. When I receive predictions or I'm communicating with spirit, I get very quickly into a state of relaxation. Now, I've done hypnosis for years and self-hypnosis, so that helps me to get where I need to be in that energy of deep relaxation, to make contact and make that vibration high enough to reach the spirit world. The other thing is training yourself to observe. It's almost like it's a mind exercise. Now, when I predict the future, I don't read cards. It's all clairvoyance. It's all, receiving information the same way I receive mediumship. So you need to train yourself to observe. It's sort of like a discipline. So if you train yourself to observe, and then this is a technique I have my students do when I'm teaching psychic development, is take some things in the house, put them on the table, look at what you have, and then close your eyes, don't look at them again, and write down as quickly as you can as many of the objects that you remembered. And then you could take it another step, and when you're driving to work or wherever you're driving, notice what's on the way. Or come home at night and then write down, what did you see that day? This gives you the discipline. It's the trend. It's discipline is what I call it, in the training, because all psychic ability is going to take interpretation. It's going to take paying attention, is having this other sense, and having a keen observation as a skill is going to get you there faster, because it's all part of the process. The other thing would be the sensitivity, sensory enhancement. That's so important, because if you're sensitive and you have that sensory input, you're going to get there faster, because everything has to do with that. I give students the thing of, I have them hug trees. That's my big thing. I give them the homework. Go and hug a tree. Just go see what that feels like. And then have them come back and talk about it or write what they experienced. That's developing your senses. Take a walk. Notice a flower. Touch the petals on the flower. Smell it. Look at the shape of it. Look at the intricacies of it. And then write what you felt, what you experienced, or talk about it. That's how you start to develop this extra sense. It's very natural, and that's what I want to press upon. It's no nothing difficult. It's natural. It's not mystical. It's natural. And I think once you start to think that way, and once you learn that, it becomes easier. It's no longer a block.
Wow. We've got to take a quick break,
Okay.
and so we'll pick up where we left off.
All right.
So everybody hang tight, and we'll be back in a few short minutes.
Don't go away. There's more Stirring the Cauldron with Marla Brooks right after these important messages.
Do you know where the world's most secret bases are located? Do you know what spooky action at a distance means? Is there a conspiracy by aliens to prevent us from conquering space? And where is the best place in the United States to see a real UFO? Find the answers to all these questions and more in Mac Maloney's new book, Mac Maloney's Haunted Universe. Visit places you never knew existed, the Hampton Tunnels of Tokyo, the UFO Trail in South America, Ong's Hat, and the very mysterious M Triangle. Mac Maloney Haunted Universe contains hundreds of reports on ghosts, haunted planes and ships, weird celebrity deaths, mysterious sounds, and a breakdown of every monster in America, state by state. You've heard him talk about it on the radio. Now get all of Mac's paranormal research in one large volume. Mac Maloney's Haunted Universe, with a foreword by the very famous Juan Juan. On sale now in your local bookstore or on Amazon.com.
Hi, this is Marla, and if you're enjoying tonight's masterclass and you want to hear it again, you'll be able to find it at the show's YouTube channel, which is Stirring the Cauldron Para X. And it'll be up there, well, forever. And you'll also find dozens of Stirring the Cauldron podcasts as well. And while you're there, why not subscribe? It's free. And whatever metaphysical area you're interested in, you'll find something to catch your eye, I'm sure. Well, thank you for listening in to tonight's class, and now I'll let you get back to your regular scheduled programming.
Are you reading? Come in. Hello? Greetings from the Shadow, and welcome to Shadowzine. My name is Jeff Belanger. I'm an author, podcaster, and explorer of the unexplained. For 30 years, I've been investigating the paranormal, UFOs, monsters, and things that bump in the night. Lately, you may have noticed how major TV networks and even social media networks have been pushing our favorite subject back into the shadows. I say good. That's why I launched Shadowzine, a monthly underground publication that covers your favorite topics in depth by some of the leading writers and researchers out there. If you're looking for 30-second TikTok clips, go somewhere else. If you're ready for a deeper dive, put down your phone and pick up Shadowzine. You can't find it in stores. This is old school print. Head to shadowzine.com and be part of the underground revolution. That's shadowzine.com, and I'll see you in the shadow.
Hi, Barry McGuire here, inviting you to come along with Marla Brooks, and let's start stirring the cauldron together on Para X.
Stirring the Cauldron with Marla Brooks, Thursdays at 9 o'clock on Para X. Welcome back to Stirring the Cauldron. Once again, here's your host, Marla Brooks.
Teacher tonight is Jane Doherty, and in case you're coming in late, the subject is mediumship. And before we keep going on, I've got another question from the chat room for you. Okay. And she says, they say you usually get messages in dreams. What is it that happens when you're not in a dream sleep and just kind of dozing off before you get the message?
You can get it that way too, I find, in that dozing off state. That's actually, it's almost like you're hypnotizing yourself. And when I was developing, I did a lot of that. And I would talk at that point in trying to get information or guidance. In fact, I made a big mistake once when I was in that state of mind. I started to want to know my guide. And what happened is an image came about and I got frightened and opened my eyes. And that was it. I couldn't get it again. So it's important, and because you'll get nervous in the beginning. That's true. But in that state, you can ask for a message. You can talk to your loved one that you want to communicate with them or see them or something because that's a very good state of mind to make a connection.
Okay. So where did we leave off?
I think I was talking about the sensory.
Yeah.
So, and like if you can go where there are flowers and really pay attention, because most of the time we just walk and we'll smell them and we'll go on. But if you stop and you feel them, so you're beginning to feel the sensitivity on your fingers, let's say, you look at the pattern of things, you're really paying attention. And that's the sensory that you need, is paying attention, is making yourself, sensitive. The other thing is knowing yourself. When I began to develop the ability, I read a lot of pop psychology books. I was trying to understand everything I possibly could about myself. And that was knowing myself. And in that, I learned some fears that I had. I had a tremendous fear of bees. If a bee came into the house, I would close that door and I have to wait for my husband to come home to kill it. Or my mother would have to come. We lived in the same town. I mean, I was petrified of them. And if we were riding in the car and I had the kids and a bee came in, I'd pull over to the side, get the kids out, open the doors, and wait for the bee to leave. Now, I was a grown woman, and I said, I have to understand, why do I have this fear? And so I tried to uncover it, which I did, and I'll tell you what it was. Mm-hmm. Those are the things you have to do. That's knowing yourself. Don't just, I've got this fear. It will interfere with you developing it. And what it turned out to be, that I received this image and information, is when I was a kid, my job was to polish the furniture. My mother was a stickler, and she did things fast. She was Italian. I took after my Polish father. I did things slower. And so what she would do is eventually come, grab the rag out of my hand and do it herself and say I was being too slow. So I took that in and became afraid that I wasn't going to be fast enough to kill that bee before it stung me. Once I realized that, I was able to let go of that, and I can kill bees no problem today. So that's an example of trying to know why you are the way you are. Because as you do that, you're getting to know, and you can easily spot things at that point. The other thing is self-love and self-confidence. I always say we're like a rosebud. And as we open those petals and we get to the truth of who we are, and we get to that self-love and confidence, we're naturally psychic. And so if you just work on loving yourself and developing more confidence and trusting, you're going to get there faster than if you didn't. It's so important, because when you get to the self-love and the self-confidence, then you're also going to trust, which is a big factor in developing the ability. And when I say self-love, I don't mean ego. You know what I mean. It's stop listening to all the negatives that have been told to you as a kid by your peers, your parents, by church, education, whatever, and just be you. Love yourself, and get rid of all those things that we carry, those emotional scars. And if we get rid of them, we become naturally psychic, and it's so easy at that point. It's so easy at that point. And then you begin to pay attention to your body. I have that crazy thing with my stomach, but before I got into ghost investigations and my stomach started doing this, I would get, knowing I was telling truth by that sensation that would come up from the back of my neck to the top of my head. And I think that that's a very prevalent sign on the body. So if you start to pay attention to that, if there's moments that you get that, maybe some people will call it goosebumps, then you can build upon that, and you'll be able to recognize more and more, and it'll be easier and easier for you to do it. And of course, meditation. We've all heard about meditation and how good it is, and it's the way you get to who you are. It's a way of penetrating some of those levels of consciousness so that you can get to the level of consciousness where you can communicate. Now, if I had listened at that time of Edgar Cayce's teachings, they said to meditate, I had to put my finger on one nostril and blow, sniff with the other, and then let go. And that was meditation. It's not meditation. You don't have to do that. Meditation can also be taking a walk. It's amazing. I wish I could have written down everything I thought of when I walked, because books were being written. But of course, I couldn't. You just can't do it. But it's a meditation. You don't think of it that way, but you could take a walk and you can get quiet as you're walking, and you could think, and maybe you're going to think of your deceased relative and ask them something, and you may get the answer as you're walking. The other thing that I did was I took longer in the shower. I would put my head against the shower stall, and I would just think of what I wanted to know. How was I being guided that day? Or if I was trying to make a connection, I would do it that way, because water also helps to do that, the barriers, and it makes it more conducive for it to get to the other side, or for you to receive that information. These are all, ways that I've done it. Especially also anything new. When I also teach the fact that once you open this ability up, in order to keep it fresh, you have to do new things. The more new things you do, the more confidence you get, the more you're keeping that consciousness open. So the more active you are with new things, all of that helps to open this ability up.
I've got another question, if you don't mind.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. It says, I don't have a spirit guide that I'm aware of. Is it best to have one or not?
You have a spirit guide, even if you are not aware of it. We all do. It changes as we grow in our own spirituality and our mental growth. You can have several. You don't need to know them. If you want to get their name, I wouldn't get it from a psychic. That was one of the things I would never do. When somebody sits down with me and they want to know spirit guide, I would say, no, you have to get it. And the way you would get it would be to meditate or just listen to some music and ask for a name. And the first thing that you get, pay attention to it. I've also found that our loved one sometimes becomes our spirit guide, for a while anyway. But the guides are always there.
Okay.
And I think I'd like to just give you some experiences that I've had so that you realize, what this ability can do.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I never wanted to be a psychic. I was a high school teacher, but I was curious as to whether this ability was real or not. So I did it as a research project. Went to over 150 psychics to find out whether this was real or not. But one day, once it was opened, I had people asking me, and that's what I did. Now, I fought it, but I gave into it. And I'm glad I did, because I've had some remarkable experiences. And one was saving a person's life from 9/11.
Mm.
What happened is I was on a radio show, and the USS Cole had just been bombed. And he asked me if I thought it was going to happen again. And I said, that's not going to happen. I said, but the terrorists are here on our soil, and they're going to attack New York and Washington and another place. Then I had the reading on someone that they often came to me for readings. It was a client. And she had just been offered a job because she was without a job. She was laid off. And now after a year, she finally was getting a job. And when she told me, I panicked. And I said, please don't take this job. I said, it's going to collapse. I said, I don't know whether the building is going to collapse or it's going to be a financial collapse. I said, please don't take it. And I said, the place that you were laid off from is going to call you back very shortly, and you're going to have your old position back. The day after 9/11, she called me to thank me for saving her life. The company that she was taking the position with was Cantor Fitzgerald.
Mm-hmm.
And just that alone has made me say anything that I've gone through, because I lost a marriage because of being psychic. So anything that I've gone through, it was worth it, knowing that as a result, I saved a person's life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's been so many things in the way that you can use this ability. Somebody brought their daughter to me who was taking drugs, and they couldn't get her off of drugs. And as a psychic and as a medium, what happened is her grandmother came through. And the grandmother gave a scenario, a particular guy, and that she was going to get into trouble and have an overdose. Do you know, when she walked out of that office, she never took a drug again.
Wow.
So it's not something you think a medium would do, but there are situations where it does, come in. Absolutely. Trying to see some of the ones I wrote down for you. There's so many, but it's funny trying to remember them.
Of course.
Was interesting because my mind was elsewhere.
We're always out there sometimes. Yeah.
Okay. An autistic child. Now, this is one, some people talk about possession or, something evil. And I had a mother call me, and she was pleading with me. She felt her son was possessed. And I did not want to do this. I contacted somebody who would do this. but the mother insisted that I go with them, so I did. The child was usually very good, was going to swimming and things like this. And what happened? Something changed in him. And he started not wanting to go to these places. But what he was doing is every time she stepped out of the apartment door, he would rip cords. He would tear them in pieces. And the electrician, whoever came, said the cords that he broke, a Mack truck would have had to go over them to break them. So I went, and with my stomach, I was able to locate where the spirit was. And I'm walking, I find the path, and as I look up, there are all these African masks above me. And I questioned the mother. They were all new, but there was one mask, and it had a spirit around it, which was possessing the child. Once we located that, which isolated which one it was, took it off the wall and got rid of it, child went back to being normal. It's interesting. You wouldn't think of that, but it was there for a reason, like whatever the African, what they did their masks for, that one represented something, that there was a spirit attached to it. And I was grateful for that and was thankful that because my stomach, I'm allowing spirit to come into me. I don't want to be where there could be a demon. That type of thing.
Yeah, when we get bloated, sometimes we do think it's demonic, but it was something we ate. Yeah.
When I was doing seances, there was one seance that there's no way that anybody could say I read anybody's mind, because sometimes that's what psychics will do, and you think that they're giving you the right information, especially about the future. They're actually reading your mind. They don't know it, so it's not their fault. Yeah. It's that you have to get good at knowing your ability to know if you are picking that up. So naturally, I always, would think about seances and what came through. And in this one seance, I can 100% say there's no way I read anybody's mind. And what happened is these names were coming out, a John and a Grace, and no one identified with them. But I kept, the spirit was hanging around me, and I kept saying it. And then the spirit was saying, there's a crumbling gravestone. And, we didn't know what was going on. It just kept saying it. We didn't identify it that night. A few days later, I got a telephone call. And what it was, person that was at the seance, her friend was named John, and his father had just died. She didn't know it. And the girlfriend's name was Grace. And when they went to go and make the arrangements at the cemetery, they found it had been vandalized and everything was crumbling.
Wow.
So it comes in. Sometimes you don't know and understand what you're getting, but you still will give it.
Before we run out of time, I want to mention that on May 31st at the Merchant and Drovers Traver Museum in Rahway, New Jersey, you'll be part of Bruce Tango's event called The Paranormal World, and you're going to be doing gallery readings.
I think he may have had some demon experiences in his investigations.
Yeah.
And, they're also going to be 2 UFO, one from MUFON and one who is a UFO investigator and paranormal investigator. So they'll be talking about UFOs. And I'll be doing the gallery readings and spirit communication. And there aren't a lot of tickets, so I know that a lot of people will be able to get the communication, the connection, because it's a smaller group. And I'm excited. I'm excited because my other love is UFOs.
That's perfect. Yeah, you've got it. So yeah, that's going to be really good. Again, it's May 31st at the Merchant and Drovers Tavern Museum. And the few tickets that are available, you can go to brucetango.com.
I'm so thrilled because you don't have, usually the people who are interested in ghosts and spirit communication, they're not bringing in the UFOs. And I think that's so important because they're here, and we're going to start knowing more and more about that. So I'm excited that it's both type of topics.
Yeah, it's all kinds of stuff, and I know that there's some kind of a little creepy audio thing that Bruce is going to get people shaking in their boots. So this is all, it's good.
Yeah. Yes. Too bad it wasn't live streamed or that.
I know, that would be great. You could scare half the population. All right. Yeah, we really have to kind of stop here, but I want you to come back at some point and do some more stuff. Maybe seance. We'll talk about it later.
Yes.
But give out, where can people find you? I know you said your website.
Facebook.
Okay.
My website is going to be redone because my son's doing it. It's not ready yet. And I lost it. The host never told us it was going out of business.
Oh, nice.
Somebody bought my name. And so we have to redo everything.
Okay.
And, but Facebook under Jane Doherty, or on, I have Psychic Medium Jane Doherty. And also you can get me through email, which is psychicjanedoherty@gmail.com. And I can give you my phone number. You can always text me, 908-447-7617.
Nice. All right. Well, I really want you to thank, everybody to listen in today. You have some class people in the chat room, and it's been a really good teaching thing.
It's great. And maybe they'll send you a message as to what they might really like.
Yeah, because you do that. This is when, people have the website, they can see all the things that are going on. And so eventually, we'll, when you get your website up, I'll tell everybody and that'll help. But we'll do it event. It was fun. It was very informational. Is that a word? Yes. And thank you so much for being here.
Oh, you're welcome.
And for everybody else, thank you too, being here. And until next time, everybody, blessed be, and merry meet again. Good night.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of Stirring the Cauldrons Masterclass. Please join us on the last Thursday of the month at the same time for another great class and more cauldron stirring. Any rebroadcast or other use of this program without explicit permission is strictly prohibited. Copyright 2024. The Holiday Weasel by Kevin MacLeod is licensed through Incompetech.